So in today's episode of the iAlpha project, I really wanted to touch on something about how when we look inwards, we expect things to get better, but more often than not, things can get harder. And there is a regression process in that development phases where things sometimes have to get worse before they get better. And by worse, it doesn't mean it's devastating. It just means sometimes the problem is bigger than we thought, or deeper than we thought, or it affects us at a greater length, or something that we thought we had resolved within ourselves resurfaces. But the journey itself can be very lonely. And with my kids, we often encourage each other to follow the path, stay aware, control our minds, understand that we don't want to run away with our ego and get into our pain bodies. But it's interesting how we face more challenges the more introspection we do. So, and I've had this conversation a few times with my kids, and quite predominantly with a few teenagers. I like to call them the light workers, these kids that are just so far ahead of their years, where they have a deeper understanding of their emotions. They're very intelligent. They're very analytical at the same time. But then they go through this process where they feel very isolated and misunderstood. And these are the kids that often look at themselves because they have a sense of giving and they want to make everyone else better and feel better. And I would argue that at a deep sense, it's all of us as humans. We all have that kind of feeling and that sensation. So my daughter and I had a conversation, and she was going through a phase where she felt kind of isolated and detached from everyone else. I mean, she had great friendships, she's got great connections. But a while back, especially when she was doing the introspection work, the first thing that happened was that your environment starts to shift. People and things in your environment that didn't serve you, the more work you do, the energy and the frequency of that stops to vibrate with your natural surroundings and things start to shift. So friends start to fall away and new friends come in. But it's a very interesting transition because she found that her self worth was getting activated. Like she had a poor sense thinking, what's wrong with me? Why am I not relating to people? Why can't people see what they're doing? And I've actually said this conversation a few times, which is why I thought it'd be really appropriate for me to share it with you. And I think it applies to all of us, and at least we know someone that could benefit from this. In certain relationships, when you do introspection and you grow, you start to see more of yourself. You become more of yourself. You become more present. And because you've done the work, it's very easy to see other people that may or may not. And in essence, you become brighter. The more work you do, the more of yourself shines. That's the best way to put it. You just become more authentically you. And that energetically is a brighter light. Now, think of it like this: when you start to deal with relationships and friendships that you have in that time when you're doing the work, the brighter you are, the more light you might shine on them. Now, this is not coming from an ego perspective. I look at me, look at the amazing star I am. It's just the reality of the situation is that we start to, when we so used to covering things up and moving on from them, and then we uncover them, it's very easy to leave them uncovered. So the brighter you become at being yourself, the more light you shine on others. Now, the interesting thing is, now imagine if I was going somewhere and I was being interrogated and I've got this big light on me. I now and everyone around me can see all my flaws. Everyone can see, this is what I'm thinking. Everyone can see me, can see my darker secrets, my shadows. I feel vulnerable. I feel afraid. So I start to tell the person, like, whoever's shining that light, stop shining the light on me. Sometimes that light just, it's not something that you're pointing out. It's just the way you are, the way you behave. There were even times where this wasn't even a conversation. It was just the way that my daughter behaved. It kind of triggered other people because it reflected to them what they weren't doing. The more she became herself, the tougher it got for her in that regard. I was trying to explain to her that you just become this bright light, and people don't like that. And rather than looking at themselves, they get mad at you because you're the one shining the light on them. And now they feel vulnerable because everybody else can see it. But there's another step to this as well. You've got to remember that, can you look into a bright light? And if you can you see what's past that light? You can't really. So when you're in this transition, it's the same sort of principle. The more you become yourself, the harder sometimes it is for the people closest to you to actually see you because you're shifting, you're changing, you're becoming brighter. It's hard for them to focus and see it. And the worst part is that they're too distracted where the source of the light is coming from, the essence of it, because they're now distracted on what's shining on them, the work they may or may not have to do. And then in that situation, it's often a push pull where people are like running away from the light and a lot of people are chasing and so on and so forth. So this is where the lighthouse principle comes in. If you guys have heard that podcast, it's great. It just talks about the lighthouse being the lighthouse, and that's your only job. So just be the lighthouse, be the light, just keep doing the introspection work. And she did that. And it was interesting that the more she did that, the more people around her showed up that were along the same frequency. But the best thing I love watching this development is that she's no longer uncomfortable about having the light shine on her. In fact, when we bring each other's attentions to the unawareness that we are in at the moment, it's shining a light on that. And we are learning very quickly on how to become excited about that. Say, you will, wow, you're absolutely right. I didn't even realize I was doing that. Geez, good catch. The reality is I'm not a bad person for doing the other thing. My brain was working in a flow. I was getting back into my old patterns. Maybe my emotions were a little bit more drained. I might not have slept well. I may be hungry. So obviously, my thoughts and mind can run away from us. It's normal. It's human behavior. But learning to compassionately connect with one another from that perspective is the trick. You know, if someone shines the light on me, I know that they're not doing it on purpose. They're doing it because they care about me. They're not doing it from a negative point of view to point something out to me from an ego perspective. I think that's the difference as well, is that you don't want to be shining the light on somebody because you are trying to make them look bad. You just have to be yourself and let that reflect in their own. If they see it, great. If they don't see it, that's also fine. That's their journey. And of course, you can also deliver it verbally. And how you deliver it, it has to be compassionate. And whether they receive that message or not isn't the issue. But if they are at a point where they don't like the light being shined on them by you just being you, don't dim your light. And that's the hardest thing for us to do as humans because we want connection. We want a sense of belonging. And when you do the work, you have this feeling of being unattached. But it's important to remember you're actually connecting more to yourself. So that feeling of loneliness, the more you connect yourself, the more it dissipates. And the more connection you feel within your own essence, that you just want to become more of yourself. And the more focused you are on that, it's only natural that the universe is going to bring things towards you that vibrate along the same frequencies. And then together you can grow and evolve. And this is just the journey of life where we will constantly flow. Some people will change frequencies, some people won't. And even then, even if people drift apart, they sometimes come back around. Sometimes they stay apart. People that you initially meet that you just did not gel with, 3 years later, you meet them and say, how did I not know this about you? But then you've changed, they've changed. So the reality is just continue to be introspective. Don't let the process of that journey affect your sense of self worth, especially if you've got programming about self worth that comes from your younger years. Just remind yourself the brighter light you are, the more people become aware of their shadows. Just try be the brightest light that you can possibly be and try be the best version of yourself. The world needs more brightness. Shine on.